Oh my Jiminy Crickets, it's me again. If y'all don't know me, it doesn't surprise me. I don't know y'all either. Why don't y'all introduce yourselves? Like, I don't know. Come knock on my door and be like, saw, dude. Okay. All right. So what I want to chat about today. So I just did that. Oh, I just did it. The next thing I wanted to chat about today is the first book of Moses, called Genesis. El Primero book of Moses, right? So the first book of Moses, and then I'll set this down because that's all I'm going to use in this video. We just had that up for the whole thing. Book of Moses, right? So let's chat about that. Moses, the same Moses that delivered the Israelites from the Egyptians, right? And about maybe the 15th century BC, or 13th, no, not 15th, maybe 13th century BC, something like that. But the one after, Noah and the ark and all that kind of stuff, right? So the thing here to note is that Moses is the one who's credited with writing the book of Genesis. They don't know for a fact, and we don't know if Moses, because he doesn't really talk about, how do you love my hair day today? He doesn't really talk about where he got his information for all of this stuff, right? He's just talking about the beginning of the planet and all that kind of stuff. So the question here is, according to the Christian belief, not really the Christian belief, not all Christians accept this belief. A few do, but this is kind of what's kind of come about from the research and all that kind of stuff. Let's see if I can't get this at least off my face a little bit. That feels better. So here's the deal. Moses wrote the book of Genesis, Exodus, and a couple of other books. I forget the name. I think he wrote like 5. But he was alive in the 15th to 13th century. He died at around 100 and something years old, 120, maybe 160, 80. I don't know. I know he didn't make it to 200, according to the Bible. But he's writing the very, very books that the basis of Christianity is built around, okay? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right? That is one of the core fundamental principles in Christianity, is that in the beginning, there was nothing existed, period. And that, and even if you have, so I have one of those linear direct Bibles that goes from like directly to Hebrew to directly to English. And I prefer to attempt to read that myself, just because, it kind of gives you a better, more raw version of the Bible. It's not the easiest thing to read. It's not something that you're going to read going to sleep. It will put you to sleep because of how hard it is to read. But the thing is, we have to assume, and there's a lot of assumptions. This is kind of the basis of Christianity, is belief, right? Because there's a ton of assumptions. We have to believe. Okay, stop. We have to believe that, everything in the Bible is true. And that's kind of one of the things of Christianity, right? Depending on the sect of Christianity that you're in, you're either interpreting the Bible as kind of like this textbook-ish storytelling type of book, or you're in the Protestant crowd or intense Protestant crowd, which is what I grew up in, which was like, no, every single word is correct kind of thing, and perfect and holy and all this kind of stuff, which is what I was taught. So the book of Genesis, Moses wrote the book of Genesis, or at least is credited with the book of Genesis. We're going off of the assumption that a whole bunch of stuff kind of existed that maybe Moses would have pulled from texts, stories, small things, family heirlooms, whatever. So the thing is, according to the Christian idea, the planet 6,000 years old. Moses, 15th century BC, or 13th century BC. So that puts Moses writing about events that took place 2,500 to 3,500 years before he was even alive. And we're taking that for word for word for word for... Where is the camera on this thing? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. I need to make sure to look at the right little dot. So we're literally taking this thing word for word for word for word. And, you know, we don't even really know if it is right. But we're assuming that it's perfect. So Moses writes this thing, presumably, say, 3,000 years after the entire planet was created. So then that brings up the question, the age-old question. Well, how do we know that the creation story is true? Because, sorry, let me take the watch off. How do we know that the creation story is true? Because there was nobody there, right? And so that's where they fall back to direct divination from God. Which is where, you know, maybe God came to him in a dream, or maybe God came to him, his spirit came down on him and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not arguing that that stuff can't happen, because, you know, personally, I've felt it, but according to a lot of different Christian ideas, depending on the sect of Christianity that you're in, like Lutheran and stuff like that, you know, the Spirit of God doesn't come down on anybody. You can't feel his presence and all that kind of stuff. I argue against all that. But because personally for me, I argue strictly based off of personal experience. And of course, everybody has their own personal experience. So it's like, I can argue that today, what happened to me? Okay, well, I can argue that 3 days ago, I slipped and fell on ice, right? That's my personal experience. You guys can argue that I didn't. I know that I did, but I can't, if we all went into a court and we dished out a whole bunch of lawyers everywhere, I would not be able to prove that I slipped on ice, because I was the only person there and I was the only person that witnessed it, right? I very much know that to me the story is true, but I can't prove that that story is true because there wasn't anybody around who also experienced the exact same thing, right? And so that's kind of the whole arguing with the whole, you know, spiritual experiences, the Holy Spirit coming down and filling and all that kind of stuff. So, but we have to assume that that God came down and showed Moses somehow that this is what happened. If that is the case, then, you know, there's just massive blinders and massive gaps, right? Obviously, there's the Genesis gap of when God created the planet and whenever he actually started creating stuff, I don't know. The Genesis gap thing exists there. But you also have the story of Cain and Abel, where Cain kills Abel. And at that point in the Bible, there should only be Adam, Eve, and Cain, because Cain killed Abel. So now there's only 3 people, 2 men, 1 woman. And when Cain gets scared and tells God, please forgive me, or whatever he says, I don't know. I could peek it open, but 8 minutes on the clock. I got to keep it running. So God essentially says, I'm so scared that people are going to kill me. Please, don't let people kill me. What people? It's only Adam and Eve at this point on the planet. So why is Cain so afraid that everybody is going to come and kill him? What's going to come and kill him? The animals, right? The other thing is that after that whole thing, Cain decides that he's going to leave and go to the land of Nod and have a wife. Which means that there was already people there. Did God not create them? Did they just spawn onto the planet? Like, how did that work, right? So they're just massive gaps. And this is the reason why I argue all the time, and the Bible just can't be taken as literally as a lot of Christian organizations try to take it, you know. And it's one of those things to me that just with all of that, we have so many books that are written today that are Protestant Christians who are saying that the Holy Spirit filled them and they felt inspired to write a book, and we disregard those books because they go against the Bible. One of those books is A Course in Miracles, where a lady, oh, I forget her name, and of course that's my phone, so I can't look it up. Normally I have my second phone with me, but I don't have it today. But this Pentecostal lady, no, Presbyterian lady got filled with the Spirit one day, and she was at work working in a hospital, and suddenly, you know, the words of Jesus were coming through her, and she was writing and writing and writing and writing, and she partners up with somebody, and they come together and they create this book called A Course in Miracles, and that is a highly controversial text because it's a highly controversial text because it goes against the Bible. It goes and it doesn't go against the Bible in the way of like a demonic, like, oh no, God doesn't exist, da 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 da, you know, worship Satan, all this crap, which I'm very much against, guys. Please don't worship Satan. That's weird. That's weird. That's very weird. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. Do what you want. Just don't tell me if you're doing it. That's so weird. Oh God. Anyway, but yeah, it goes against the Bible in the separation of man and how God created the planet. And if you look at the linear, text where it says, you know, oh, I wasn't prepared for that. Essentially, where it says, you know, God created with word. In the linear text, the word is vibration. And so it's like God created with vibration kind of thing. So that's something that I've yet to make a video on because I don't have enough stuff put together for that yet. But I was just bringing those two things from the book of Genesis. The one that I saw, my last video, which is talking about Cain and Abel and introducing that whole thing. And then talking about this video, talking about Moses writing about the beginning of the planet and all of these families and all of these people who had each other 3,000 years after all of that stuff had happened. And so the argument there just being, lighten up, don't take it word for word. And it's not a perfect book. It's not a perfect book. It's a good book, but it's not a perfect book. Yeah, okay. 12 minutes. Cheers. Bye.